Is it at all possible that the Lord of this realm, who has endless knowledge and limitless power, should promise paradise to his servants who obey his orders, and should frighten and warn those who disobey him against hell, and should inform us about this promise and frightening through all of his prophets and books, but then should not keep his promise and show his ignorance and weakness? God forbid. Is it at all possible? However, what he promises is never difficult for his power. On the contrary, it is very easy for him. It is as easy as to retrieve the numerous beings of the previous spring again in the next spring. What he promised are such things that all of the prophets reported them unanimously, and all of the saints unanimously witnessed that they took place. It is contrary to the dignity of God to break his promise, and it does not fit him. Is it at all possible that God Almighty should not bring the things that he repeatedly promised and frightened people with? Should show his ignorance and weakness? God forbid. And should refute his prophets and saints? No, never. Now, let us try to find an answer to this question. What might be the reasons for not fulfilling the things that people have been promised or that they have been warned against? We can list those reasons as follows. 1. Ignorance. If a person who promises to do something does not know how to do it, that is, if he is ignorant about the thing he promises, what he promises will not be fulfilled. That is, ignorance is a reason that prevents what is promised from being fulfilled. 2. Weakness. If a person who promises to do something is too weak or poor to do it, what he promises will not be fulfilled. That is, weakness is also a reason that prevents what is promised from being fulfilled. 3. Telling lies. If a person who promises to do something is a liar and breaks his promise easily, what he promises will not be fulfilled. That is, lying is another reason that prevents what is promised from being fulfilled. Then let us give an example. If someone said to you, "I will set up a magnificent farm and prepare feasts that you have never seen for you," one of the following would be necessary in order to doubt that statement. 1. If the person who makes that promise is an ignorant person, that is, if he does not know how to set up a farm, you can doubt his promise. However, if he is competent about the issue, the second alternative is taken into consideration. 2. If the person is weak and poor, that is, if he cannot afford to set up a farm, you can doubt his promise. However, if he is very influential and rich, and if he has hundreds of farms like the one that he promises, you cannot doubt him in terms of this aspect. Then it is necessary to check the third alternative. 3. Is this person honest? Does he tell lies? Does he break his promise? If no one has ever heard him tell lies, and he never resorts to lying, you cannot doubt him in terms of this aspect either. Then we can say, if the person who promises us to set up the farm and the feasts, and it is well informed, powerful, and rich, if he always tells the truth, and if he values us and makes us feel that he values us, can we doubt his promise? To doubt his promise after that would mean to accuse him of ignorance, weakness, poverty, breaking his promise and telling lies. Similarly, God Almighty promised paradise to believers and hell to unbelievers. It is impossible to think that God cannot keep his promise. As we have mentioned above, not keeping one's promise originates from ignorance, weakness, or telling lies. All of them are contrary to the dignity, knowledge, and honesty of God Almighty. O unbeliever! Do you know how foolish a crime you are committing with your unbelief and denial? Paying heed to your own lying fancy, your delirious intellect, your deceptive soul, you reject the one whose glory and stature can in no way admit the breaking of his word. As a matter of fact, his truthfulness and veracity are attested by everything in this realm. The reason why hell is so terrifying is the magnitude of man's crime, because man commits such big crimes despite his infinite pettiness. By denying the hereafter, he accuses God of ignorance, weakness, and telling lies. He deserves eternal and great punishment due to this crime. Now, let us summarize this important and strong proof in items. 1. God Almighty promised paradise to believers and hell to unbelievers. 2. God Almighty informed us about this promise through his prophets and books. 3. That is, not to bring the hereafter means to refute all of the prophets and the books. God is free and away from refuting his loyal servants and his own books. 4. Breaking one's promise originates from ignorance, weakness, or telling lies. Since it is impossible to think that God is ignorant, weak, and dishonest, it is impossible to deny the existence of the hereafter. 5. That is, those who deny the existence of the hereafter accuse God Almighty of ignorance, weakness, and lying. The punishment for this big crime is definitely hell.